Discover Wellness.
Back in October, the Super Bowl host committee held an orientation. It was for the 10,000 volunteers working to make the Super Bowl experience a great one for locals and for visitors. To make sure people were in jobs that played to their strengths, they took a test by Equilibria. Not only is it great in the workplace, but it's also a great tool in schools and in families to help everyone get along. Here to explain what makes this test so efficient, please welcome Lewis Sr. and Chameka Scott with Equilibria, along with a student, Sarah Abisab. Good morning. Okay, so there's lots of tests like this out there, but this one is specifically different. We'll get into that in a second. But Lewis, how did you come up with this idea to do this testing?
We started in the early 2000s, actually from a safety perspective. I was working offshore. We were seeing a lot of people get hurt, and then realized there was actually a personality perspective to why people were getting into situations they didn't need to get into. So we found, for example, myself as a top color yellow, I could actually jump in to help and get hurt.
That's your natural personality.
Yes,
yeah, yes. To solve things quickly,
exactly.
Right?
So managing that was the first key.
Yeah. All right. So what makes this one different than a lot of those personality tests out there?
Okay, well, the first thing that's probably different is it's free, so people can go online and take it.
One? Yes.
and the reason for that is we want people to be able to discover their e-colors and then actually learn what their strengths and potential limiters are. And now, as you well know, we're starting at about 7 years old and all the way through life.
Yeah, and I love when you say potential limiters, because this is not a negative, it's just who you are. Yeah. But that who you are needs to fit with other who you ares, if you will, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so it goes through a system of colors. And I have, is this, okay, yellow over green?
Yep.
Okay, so yellow over green. I took the test, and what I found was to be very true. I'm kind of an A to Z person. I always say A's a problem, Z solve it. I don't want to like sit there on M and go, oh my gosh, there's a problem. Can you believe there's a problem? Oh my God, I can't believe there's a problem, right? I just want to solve it and go on. So they know in the office I'm always like, pedal faster, get there with me, right? But then the advantage of someone else who thinks things through is that if I miss something, that's the person who sat there and said, oh, but wait, yeah. Right? And so we fit together. It's just a matter of respecting each other and the whole bit. All right, Chameka, you are a coach. Sure. And so what do you see as the biggest issues people have when they take this test, and then after they take the test, what's the biggest advantage?
I think the part of it that kind of surprises people is not saying that this is who you are, but this is how you might come off to others. And so having not thought of that before, something that you think is your strength might come off abrasively or negatively to somebody else.
Right. You and I were talking that we're kind of the same person.
That's right. So that awareness that not everybody wants to hear my story kind of took me off guard, right? And so for people to kind of get that light bulb makes a big difference.
Yeah, and this works in so many different areas. For example, you play basketball.
That's right.
In the WNBA.
And there are a lot of personalities. If you could imagine, 15 women on one team, sometimes you butt heads.
Yeah.
And it's nice to know that it's not because, we're not the same people, and that's okay.
Right.
And there's ways to play to our strengths that we can all benefit from, and that's the beauty of sport in general.
All right, and Sarah, we're going to talk to you about how this works with you and children in a second, but first let's go over what we call the E-colors. We've mentioned a couple of times, I'm, yellow over green, you're yellow over red, you and I are together, we can understand each other. All right, so how are the colors kind of divided out, and what do they mean?
Okay, well, one of the things that we're giving everybody who's part of the Super Bowl volunteer, they're getting this card, and it's really a simple way to explain it. So we have red, green, yellow, and blue. Red and green, red tend to be the independent thinkers, task-oriented, and yellow, blue, yellow tend to be more the people, emotional side, if you like.
Yeah.
Red, yellow tend to be quite fast-paced. Blue, green, blue tend to need more information.
Okay, so, and you look at it in the volunteer aspect, 10,000 people out there who you don't know, so personally, but this gives you a quick jump start, if you will. Yeah. All right, so there are some people who are very patient, they're the ones going, I know, but you can't park here. Trust me, I understand, I am with you, but you can't park here, right? As opposed to the person says, look, I'm going to tow it, okay? Right. So yeah, that's the person that goes from A to Z. I'm going to tow it if you want to park here. All right, this can be used in so many different applications, and you've also used it among kids, as you're mentioning. And Sarah, when you took this test, what did you find was happening?
So when I took the test, something that I found that was happening was that after I took the test and I started looking at the brain, I saw some potential limiters, and my friends were like, yeah, that's you. And then I was like...
Like what? Like what was a potential limiter?
Something that was emotional. And I was like, and my friends were like, yeah, you're very emotional. I was like, but I don't want to be emotional, but I have to accept the fact that I am, And that's why e-colors will help us improve and solve these situations.
Yeah, in fact, you all have actually used this in schools where bullying wasn't a problem, right?
Yeah.
And so, again, helping people to understand each other and using it in families. My husband and I last night, and this is the way we always communicate, we were watching a football game, and then somebody said something about the modern-day killer bees. And so I said, oh, kind of like the killer bees during the Astros with Bagwell, Biggio, and what was the third one? And my husband goes, they're talking about football. I said, I know, but I'm just saying that they also had killer bees in the Astros. He goes, you took a left turn because they're talking about football. I understand that, but they also, right? And I go, look it up. And he goes, well, why would I look it up? Because they're talking about football. And I'm like, please just come with me, right? So finally he looked it up, but he looked up Astros Killer Bees, and it was Killer Bees from 1996. And I said, you didn't look up what I asked you to. It was Astros, Killer Bees, Bagwell, Biggio. Now what do you get? Oh, Berkman. Okay, thank you. It took us a long time to get there, right? But again, this is something that works. You've seen work in families.
Yes. So one of the beauties of, I'll give you my own family. So my wife is a twin, identical twin. My wife is predominantly blue-green, and my sister-in-law is red-blue. She's predominantly red-blue. So for anybody who out there in the world who typically has a lot of blue-green, they do not like confrontation. So a lot of blue-green starting at school will never raise their hand in class, ever. Somebody who
could have a tendency to be bullied too, right?
Very much so, because they're not understood. And that's one of the reasons that the bullying has gone down. My son wanted a car a few years ago, so my wife looked at every piece of information on the internet about the car, which a lot of blue-greens will do. But she doesn't like to go and ask for discount because she thinks it's going to upset the emotional side, thinks it's going to upset the car salesman. So she finds out which car she likes, tells her red-blue twin sister, go in and buy the car, she got $2,000 discount.
This is called teamwork, isn't it? Yeah. It's called teamwork.
It really does work between families at every level.
All right, and then, of course, as we brought it back to in the workplace, in an office, and I think so many times things that they're not taken care of at this level have a tendency to explode over nothing.
Yes.
Oftentimes what we say is that was really, when you think about it, was over nothing. It's because if you let things fester, it becomes a big deal. Yeah. So just about, you were saying,
And it's in those moments when they blow up is when you see your e-colors kind of manifest, probably just textbook to what we've already, shared with people. So if you have that awareness beforehand, then you can manage it before it becomes a problem.
Yeah. All right. So when you go online, you take this this series of the test, a series of questions, and those questions kind of hit at your emotional self. So you got to be very honest with it. Because I kept thinking, oh my gosh, should I say this? Because I'm really this right here, right? But be very honest with it, and it'll tell you again kind of who you are at the base, at the core. And so when you take those questions, it'll give you your colors and easily explain what that means. And the thing I also love is, and I worked with you on this is that you give examples of, like, this is how somebody may ask you a question which may make you feel like you're stupid, or the person can come at you when they know who you are to say, I was wondering if, as opposed to, didn't you check out this? I was wondering if we checked out this, if we get a... So that's what this is about. When you wear this in the office and you really understand who each other, you're reminded to look at it. And there's also like a pause button. Where's the... Oh, yeah, there's the pause button. When you start getting frustrated that the person's not pedaling faster, you press this kind of like pseudo pause button and go, I have to remember that this is a blue over red. And the blue over red has to go, I have to remember that she's like moving at warp speed. So, and then it stops and makes you appreciate the person you're in front of and learn how to communicate with them.
Let me give you a good example. So yesterday, I think we gave out something like 1,400 uniforms, because yesterday was the first day with the volunteers, with the Super Bowl, getting ready for the Super Bowl. And I was actually helping them out on reception for a while. So people would come in and go, I can't remember my e-colors. I took the PDI. So actually, we don't call it a test. We call it a personality diversity indicator, just so people don't think it's a pass and fail. And I saw people come up and go, well, I'm not sure what my e-color. Well, the moment somebody says they're not sure, that kind of gives you an idea of what their e-colors probably are.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that person has to be treated accordingly.
Yeah, because I told you this is who I am. All right, thank you very much. It really is very cool. We took this test in our office and emailed everybody in our office. All right, for more information on the Equilibria test, we have a link on greatdayhouston.com. Well, if your life has been a little flat lately, Great Day's Christina Cooker is standing by with someone who has a